Welcome back. Hey, guess what? We're back after a couple of days away, and we're locked and ready to start. Hey, get those phones on Do Not Disturb. On today's show, Rebecca Dingwell gives recommendations for a more accessible board game night with your friends. And we started the week going out voting. Election time has come and gone. On the heels of his election win, Mark Carney is laser focused on protecting Canada and the trade war with the United States. But in the shuffle, dedicated disability advocacy has vanished from cabinet. We're asking today, is that the price of crisis management or the moment that we all learn to speak louder? It's got to be someone's move for disability rights and more.
This is Kelly and Company.
Man, we're ready to talk today. Had a couple of days away, so we're fueled up and ready to go. Thank you for being with us. Remember to check out our podcast. Subscribe there from your podcast platform of choice and give us a rating and review. While you're at it, venture over and get involved in our YouTube channel. Lots of great content there to enjoy. Settle back with the show at your leisure. Nazreen Abdel-Majid joining me on the program today. Boy, we're going to really chat it up today on the show. And Nazreen, I have to say, for those dealing with post-storms already started, it's a little rough. It's got to be scary for insurance companies, not to mention people in affected areas such as here in London, Toronto, Ottawa, not to mention the fire season that we're being high alerted to. Lots to be concerned about. And a lot of times now, folks, just try to keep an eye and be safe.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Keep an eye out, be safe, try to stay indoors, and I'm wishing everybody well.
We had trees go down, and I think this has been something that's been all over Canada on the news. Big trees, and when they go down, the roots yank up the road and the sidewalk around them and driveways and whatever. So not only do they hit houses, they're pulling up and causing damage. And if you happen to be scurrying, trying to get somewhere, it's so scary. Like it's hard to imagine with the size of the trees that are, it's just like a hand coming along, an invisible hand, and over. And then people were telling me about the traffic lights. I was listening to the radio and they were talking all about how the lights were turned around. A lot of the street lamps, the lights were turned and facing other ways. And I didn't know this could be a thing, not obviously climbing up a light pole in a long time, but and checking, I had no idea they could be adjusted and moved that way by the wind. I mean, it makes sense, obviously. They have to have some play in case of wind, but these guys were turned and facing other directions. Did you know that?
That's
could happen?
Wild. No, I didn't hear that, but that's wild. That is very concerning.
Yeah, it really is strange. And again, Fedora's off here in London. Very thankful because some of these things that were being shown on the news, trees landing on houses, numerous houses in the city, no injuries, and thankfully no deaths. So very, very lucky to all. But we're back. We're happy to be with you. We've got great conversation on today's show, and let's get started, Niz.
Established in 2012, Global Accessibility Awareness Day aims to promote digital accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities. It encourages designers, developers, and organizations to consider accessibility in their work, ensuring that digital platforms are usable by everyone. Amy Amantea is here, our arts and cultural contributor. She's going to tell us how this relates to the arts. Amy, this is digital access. How are we relating this to arts and culture?
I know, it seems weird, right, to talk about digital access and arts and culture and how those things intersect. But before I do that, I gotta give you a little God trivia. Global Access Awareness Day. Oh my God.
Oh boy.
So GAAD, right, for short. Did you know that God was inspired by a blog post?
No,
I think I did know that. I
Did you know
think
this?
I did. I do, but I couldn't tell you about it. But I do recall it starting so small like that, and bang, where it went from there. Because
I mean, Kelly can easily just say that.
Yeah. Well,
of course, because he knows I'm going to give him the answer.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
of course. So I don't look bad.
Of course. No, you don't look bad. So it did. And I think it reminds us of the power of, weren't you just saying at the beginning of this thing, Kelly, that we need to make our voices louder? That a blog post of all things can catch the attention and create a global movement, because this is Global Access Awareness Day, which happens to be on the 15th of May this year. So the blog post, just for context.
Do you remember AIM, who put the post up?
I do.
Am I right to say, if I recall, it was a person from Toronto, now in San Francisco, I believe is where he is. I could be wrong. I could have this backwards.
So the blog post was posted in 2011, so not that long ago, by web developer named Joe Devon, who wrote about the need for a day to focus on accessibility, which caught the attention of an accessibility professional named Jennison Ascension, who now works for LinkedIn as their San Francisco.
And where is Jennison? See, Jennison's from Toronto. Joe, I think, is also Toronto. We've had Joe on the show, but I thought it was Jennison who did the original blog post. But I remember, because I've known Jennison for a number of years, and before he left Toronto, we were discussing sort of that, but it didn't retain. But when we've had Joe on the show, he's kind of referenced that. So I knew I vaguely had it right, or at least the players in mind, just didn't know the order. So there it is.
You just gotta love Canadians.
See, I can say that too.
Yeah.
And Jennison now is working at LinkedIn for accessibility there. So together they launched this first guide, and that was in 2012, as you mentioned, Nisreen. So, and this is now a global event that's observed in numerous countries. So yay for gotta love Canadians. Anyways, so digital accessibility.
We have to get Joe back on the show. Joe is great, and you follow, and they're great follows on X or whatever, both Jennison and Joe. So I think Jennison's still on there. Actually, he may not be.
Well, I would say that maybe nobody should be, considering. I don't want to get political about it, but maybe owned by a Nazi. Whatever. Anyways,
she slid it in there. I love it.
I just slid it in there. If you check out some movements and some photos, maybe. Anyway, so digital technology is used in the arts every day. If we really think about it, because I don't know, does anybody listen to music? That's digital. Does anybody watch films or look at filmmaking? Does anybody listen to audiobooks? I know y'all do. Audio description, that's all an art form that's used digitally. Audio tours that we listen to in our head. Photography, right? I'm a photographer. So some of these tools that we are using to create works of art, just to name a few, and some art itself is created in the digital medium, like filmmaking. So some of these organizations across Canada, so like Tangled Art and Disability that you have all in Toronto, which I'm extremely jealous of, let's just say that out loud. Kickstart Disability Arts and Culture, which we have here in Vancouver, have been so instrumental in promoting disability arts and culture, and often do these big events around God, emphasizing the importance of accessibility in arts and culture in general. So wanted to point out a couple of things that are happening. If people want to check out some stuff, anybody interested in some stuff that's happening around Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and some arts to check out. I don't know. Has anybody experienced digital art?
On a day-to-day basis,
yeah, I would say so. And again, some of it at first you say how accessible is it going to be, but True. I think your examples, some of the things that you've said here, we know they are, and we know so many different things qualify as art, as you've just gone over. So I think when you stop and say, well, would I want to go to Tangled and see somebody's exhibit, is it going to be for me something I can, we think immediately, oh, do you want to go look at these paintings? Well, I'm totally blind. No, it's probably not going to do much for me. But nowadays, there's so many ways people are being incorporated, even with these things that are there to stimulate everyone.
And I mean, you remember what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, what was happening out of Dolby? With the sound of a masterpiece. I mean, is there anything about that isn't digital?
That's right. That's right. No.
Probably not, except for the humans.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the humans
Yeah.
that make some of the digital magic work, right? So, oh my gosh, just wait until it's a robot that's making your digital art. We're probably there already. I'm just ignoring.
Yeah, we're
that.
not too far away from that.
We're not too far.
It's
But one of the
terrifying,
things,
but yeah.
it kind of is, right? It kind of is. One of the things that struck me about what's happening at Tangled in their exhibition right now is an artist named Mauricia Moodley has this exhibition called One Step Still Moves Us Forward. One Step Still Moves Us Forward, which is actually a really interesting title. It starts on May the 9th and runs through July the 18th. And you can actually order this exhibition online. You can do an online, you can book your own online tour, and they take you through the gallery space online. And her tour is her practice begins with a video, and it's about video and time. So her practice itself is a digital practice, video and time, and she works. Her work is a spanning and moving of images, of sculpture. It's an installation, and they explore this. This inextricable intake of link between these two concepts of time and video. So this One Step Still Moves Us Forward explores the introduction of crypt time. So if anybody knows what crypt time is, it's and they explore this through video medium, right? So crypt time, or the lagging, the repetitive, the absent-minded kind of time. This is like a decolonized version of time, which has become an important tool to integrate this impulse of this idea that time isn't really enforced, right? This idea that time itself could be a bit of a burden, that it's a capital construct.
Right.
It has capital ideals, right? Who really believes in time? Why are we, I also talked to some Indigenous folks just as a tangent about time. And this Indigenous woman said to me, well, who said that breakfast has to be at 9 a.m. and lunch has to be at noon?
And again, we do this with so many things, right? Like some of us have it so into our head that around 11:30, 12 o'clock, oh, I'm hungry. And it's because the clock that we adhere to within us tells us that. Or like you said, the constrictions, this is where it was so late in coming, all day breakfast for most places, because, well, who says you got to have breakfast
it's
now
marketing.
or at that time? Or why can't, exactly, because that's what they
capitalism.
want. Uh-huh.
Yep. And so she was saying, in decolonized time or Indigenous time, you eat when you're hungry. So, we only eat at 9 a.m. breakfast because we are now, so it's reinforced in us over and over and over and over and over for the last 40 years or 50 years or however you've been alive, that you should eat at 9 a.m. So now you're programmed to eat at 9 a.m. Right?
Exactly.
So, whereas people have just
think twice about it.
We don't think twice about it. So, so now I don't feel bad when I get up in the morning and I'm like, I'm not a breakfast eater. I'm just not hungry at breakfast time. Or some people are ravenous at breakfast time and don't, eat for the rest of the day. Right. So it's like you eat when you're hungry, and that's kind of how your body was meant to do. And you eat what you
want. You don't have to go for the cereal bacon. If you choose to take out cold roast from yesterday or chicken, go crazy.
Fuel is fuel. Yeah. Fuel is fuel. And so that's right. The same idea as crypt time, so to speak, which is it asks us, what does it mean to move through time without a goal of advancement? Because we're always told that if we don't have a goal, if we don't have this advancement, what are we doing? Right? We're unproductive people. And so anyway, so I think this is kind of an interesting, exciting idea, and fits in with the idea of what you would find at Tangled Disability Arts. And so anyways, you can order this online, and they'll take you through this whole exhibition online. So you can do it from the comfort of your home. So a digital intersection in both ways, right? Digital medium that they're working through. And so I think you book these on Wednesdays. And so they've sort of totally dedicated their time on Wednesdays to book these, and you just book it online. And so I'm like, huh, I think I'm gonna book myself a tour on a Wednesday from the
Love
comfort
that.
of my own home, right?
That's
And so
awesome.
they'll audio describe it. You can have conversations with the person on the other end. Totally, totally cool to me.
Okay.
So there you go. So here's another example. Actually, we did this on Vocali the other night, so I'm really familiar with the Capture Photography Festival. But if you're actually in Vancouver and you want to experience it in person, I didn't know you could do this with photography, but the Capture Photography Festival is a citywide thing in Vancouver. It happens every year around April. This one is running through June the 21st. Happens in various sort of locations around Vancouver, but the Capture Photography Festival is a lens-based art form. It's not just about photography. I didn't know there was a thing about lens-based art. But the Capture Photography Festival this year is about putting photographs onto fabrics. Did you know this was a thing?
What?
I didn't know that's what it's called.
Right?
I've heard of that, but I have no idea what it would turn out to be. Wow.
Yeah.
Is it like the
it's
same
quite-
idea as putting like a photo on a
On
T-shirt
a
or
shirt,
something?
wouldn't it? Yeah, that's what
That's
I
what
would
I'm
think.
imagining.
No, I mean that's
No?
what I if I remember being in high school, like the most rudimentary thing when I would take a photograph and I would buy one of those uh transfer things from like a Michael's, and
Me
you put
too.
your photograph on the transfer paper and you
Yeah.
iron it on your t-shirt.
Oh, right. Yeah,
And then
yeah.
yeah. And then like, I don't know, a week later you put it in the wash and the transfer paper
it's
starts
gone.
to peel off. And like,
Yeah.
it's just, and at the outline, it was like yellow borders. Like it was just so rudimentary, right?
Oh my
So
God.
this exhibition was called Stitched, and it's a merging of photography and textile practices. So we take these textile practices, and this one, there's a couple of photos here that are going to pop up in the background, but one of them is one of these installations is called The Gate or The Gateway, and it's the opening to the exhibition. And let me just describe what this is to you. So think about the inside of a wall, how it's framed by 2x4s that are like what, 12 inches apart, so a foot apart. And it's just 2x4s, the inside of a wall. And then what this artist has done has taken photographs of different parts of iconic buildings in Vancouver and things you would see on buildings, like bits and pieces of wear and tear, or excuse me, graffiti, or this is a really iconic window or a piece of public art. So they've taken these snapshots of history from today in Vancouver, and they've printed it onto woven textiles that are kind of made into like a leg warmer. And the leg warmer bit goes around these 2x4s. So you've got these pictures on these pieces of fabric that fit around these 2x4s like leg warmers, right? So the fabric is wrapped around these 2x4s. And
So there's
you
actually
go
pictures
through
on both
this.
sides, right? It would be pictures
Yes, yeah.
right around. Okay.
They're surrounded around it. And you go through this gateway. So it's kind of symbolic of the city of Vancouver. And you're going through this gateway into this gallery space where there's all sorts of different types of these textiles that have photography printed onto textiles. And the idea of this gateway is, if you come back to Vancouver in 30 years, how different will it be? So you could take this structure anywhere in the world and you could do the same thing, right? You could update these fabrics. You could do the same thing. And inside the gallery, I don't have pictures of these, but inside this gallery, for example, there is this one hanging textile on the wall that's kind of like a banner, floor to ceiling. And it's two kind of exposed images, and they're in shadow, so you don't see facial features of these folks. But this is a photo taken from Haiti, probably in the 20s. You can't tell the gender of these folks, but they're wearing sort of clothing that might look like female clothing. But they're the every person, because you don't see the features. They're the every person's experience of somebody from roughly the 20s in Haiti.
That is really
and so it's
interesting.
about home, it's about migration, right? And so the photographs are transposed onto the textiles, and it's repeated. The same photo is repeated panel over panel over panel. And then at the bottom panel, they've taken these textiles and it's woven on a jacquard loom, which is like the first bit of technology that had led into the computer. And I was explained what a jacquard loom is. Did you know how a jacquard loom works?
Absolutely not.
So it's,
no.
it's like a loom. So think about a person who used to have to sit in front of a loom, and you know, you're taking the fabric back and forth, and oh, now you want a rudimentary kind of flower in there. Well, now you have to change, you know, this fabric into this fabric. And basically the loom was a piece of paper with holes in it. And somehow the loom knew that where the holes are, that's where you change the fabric, and stitched, you know, dark colored fabric here, which was like the basics of how a computer worked. It's like mind boggling, right? And so that's how this photograph was turned into fabrics onto a loom. Anyways, like it boggles your mind that they can do this kind of thing. It's rudimentary, but it's contemporary, and it says something about home in Haiti and the ripping of the photograph. And it's not actually a ripping, it's textiles that have interrupted this photo, which basically, when you look at it visually, is makes it look like the photo's been ripped in certain parts.
That is really something.
Right? And it rips you away from home. And it's so like you get into this artist's mind, and I don't know, it's just fabulous. And so there you go. There's digital mixed with textiles. Pretty cool. So you can go into this gallery space and see all of these different artists that are doing this different stuff with photography mixed with textiles. How flippin' cool is that?
So cool.
That is really phenomenal work.
I know.
And amazing.
Who knows?
To even think of it.
Who knew you could do this stuff?
Wow.
Right? Who knew you could do this stuff? And so the last one I wanted to draw your attention to, which is music mixed with storytelling. And really, I wanted to draw your attention to this because this is a blind artist doing this storytelling through music and through subtitles that come up, which is a part of an integration of digital, because this artist is telling this storytelling through Hebrew because they're a blind Israeli artist. This is coming to the Jewish Community Center here in Vancouver for 2 days only, and it's called Without an Evil Eye. And he's telling the story of how he navigates through an Israeli experience after sight loss. And this is an award-winning show, a one-man show. And it's blending theatrical storytelling and stand-up comedy and incorporating visual and musical elements. And I can only imagine, I can only imagine, because I'm going to go experience this one next Wednesday myself, because Vocalize is going to make this accessible by reading out the subtitles that are in Hebrew into English. So it'll be in Hebrew. So the digital technology that allows us to experience this subtitling in Hebrew so that we can understand this story in English is also part of how we engage with stories that are not in languages that everybody speaks. But as a blind storyteller, I'm interested in what his experience is in a different language, in a different culture, because we connect through the experience of blindness, but not through the experience of, right? Not through the experience of culture. Through the experience of language. So I'm going to go listen to this person tell his story in a language I'm not familiar with.
Really
but we're going to be
cool.
connected through an experience, right? So there's all sorts of cool things that are happening through technology.
I was just going to say, and so many of these things
art,
possible due to it, due to technology, due
absolutely.
to our e-world.
Right. And look at what we're doing with Vocal Eye in the digital space. If you come join us on a Wednesday night through Zoom, we make all sorts of different arts accessible through the platform of Zoom, whether we're describing tours or listening to a described movie together, or an art gallery that we're bringing photos to the space, but we have curators and artists talking through their art form, and we ask questions, and it's a conversation through art. And that only happens through digital technology. So digital technology has been with us for a long time, starting from the jacquard loom and before. A different type of digital technology, and it's working for us. So let's not turn our backs on art and the digital combined.
Thanks, Amy.
Amy, thank
Cool
you
stuff.
so much.
Yeah, cool stuff, my friends. And we're connecting right now talking about art through technology.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wish we had more time with you because this is
Always.
some interesting stuff. We rely so much on technology these days, of course, but why not in our art too? Not only for accessibility, but for its own artistic value and art form. If you want to book yourself a free online tour of One Step Still Moves Us Forward, visit Tangled Art and Disability website for more details. And if you want to join free on Wednesday evenings for the Vocal Eye Almost Live Accessible Arts Adventures, check out vocali.ca.
Wow. Lots there for you. A lot. And think about 10, 15 years ago. No, we wouldn't be able to be included in so many of these great things. Or the artists wouldn't be able to even remotely think about including us. Or those of us, I'm going to speak about those in the blind world, let's say, for example, other persons with disabilities, wouldn't necessarily be able to even be as included and make it something for all instead of making something for, hey, this is something that my blind compadres can relate to. Hey, this is something that I can include everyone else who may not read Braille, who may not be a part of the blind world, but this is how that communication, as Amy was talking about, through what Vocal Eye was doing to make those overheads, the subtitles available to so many of us. Wow.
Even being online, Kelly, a few years ago, that wouldn't cross anybody's mind to do that.
And you would worry about putting so much online for it being hacked and stolen. But here's ways that this is art that we all want to see. We can watermark it and stuff like that so that it's still protecting the artist. I love the ability for someone who may not have access to that exhibit to be able to go online from Tangle Art and see that. Just tremendous experience in the best way they can. We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision we make at AMI, including programming, media consumptions, and accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies. For more information, or how do you join, go to ami.ca/panel. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. And folks, also reach out to our show. Email us at kellyco@ami.ca and give us a ring. 1-866-509-4545. That's 1-866-509-4545. And remember, you can leave a voicemail. We'd love to hear you, maybe even play it here on the show.
Rebecca Dingwell is a reformed board game hater. She's here to share some board game recommendations along with some tips to make them more accessible. Rebecca, welcome.
Hi, folks.
Hi. What are some things to consider when picking a board game for a group?
So I think there are a couple of main things. One is how long you want to be playing. There are some games that are a bigger time suck than others. And secondly, I think something that not a lot of people think about from the jump, but then maybe mid-game you realize you probably should have, is just what the dynamics of the group are. If you're a bunch of people who already know each other really well, then it's probably pretty obvious to you. You don't have to think about that too hard. But if you're like combining people from different friend groups or people are meeting for the first time, then that's something to consider as well. Like maybe you don't want to play Cards Against Humanity with a bunch of people who don't know each other's sense of humor, and it might be awkward, hurt feelings, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So tell us about Betrayal. There's multiple versions to it.
Yeah. So Betrayal is a really fun game. There are a couple different versions that I have played along with a few expansion packs. So I think the first one they came out with was Betrayal at House on the Hill, which is sort of a horror theme. So the way the game works is each time you roll, you're sort of building the board. So there are different tiles you're putting out each time. So the board is a little bit different every time you play. You're actually creating it as you go. And then at a certain point, it's pretty much a co-op game up until a certain point, at which point there is a trigger that causes one of the players to become the betrayer. And so there are a couple storylines where that doesn't happen, but usually there is one player who becomes the betrayer, and then you're all playing against that person. So it's fun. I like it because it is very replayable. You are never really playing the same thing twice because of that world building aspect, and because of the different person becoming the antagonist every time.
Yes.
And there's also a betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is Dungeons and Dragons themed, which is, we all know, I'm pretty into, but it's also just fun kind of fantasy if you're into that.
Yeah, and
I love board games like this because of the fact that like it keeps you on your toes. It's
it's the same
mystery,
but different, right? Especially with the building of the board and the antagonist being different. Okay, and that really makes it fun in that sense, even as a social thing. Second game.
Yeah, so I'm kind of biased here because I love Wonder Woman. There are a couple of Wonder Woman pieces of art behind me as we speak. So I bought the Wonder Woman game. It's called Challenge of the Amazons, and I bought it kind of because I was like, Wonder Woman, but it's actually a great game. It's co-op, so you're all playing kind of as part of the same team, if you will. And it's not quite as dynamic as Betrayal, but you do have a few different options. So you're supposed to be defending Themyscira, the Paradise Island, from a villain. So you can choose from three of the main Wonder Woman villains. So there's Ares, there's Cheetah, and there's Circe. So you can, and they each have different abilities. So some are harder than others, and some require different strategies than others. But that, I think, is another thing that makes the game replayable. Even though it's only really three different villain options, it's still, when you're playing with different people, it helps kind of keep it fresh, so you don't feel like it's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
that's neat.
Cool.
That's really cool. I think that's always the best thing in selling a game, especially when you have those different options. Going back to what you said about the social thing too with people, I know that it's amazing when you think of board games, and I know so many have morphed into online where you're playing with other people and even doing some of that, whether it's a board game style or whatever. But it's very interesting how, if you look at old TV shows or whatever, a lot of that moment to bring on, okay, we need a scene where there's a discussion, something gets heated, but what are they doing during that scene? It's always around some kind of board game. So it's really funny about when you think about beyond just actually playing the game, what it socially, what it demonstrates. So for you, what did you used to dislike about board games?
Yeah, so I think maybe, if not last month, maybe the month before, I kind of confessed that I am both a sore loser and a sore winner. So I'm kind of like the worst person to play a board game with. I didn't like. It was more like I didn't like who I became when I was playing board games. I'm like, oh my god, what an awful person I am to be around. But I think that was partially because I hadn't fully discovered the vast array of board games that exist. Like it was either it was Monopoly, or it was like kind of the main Hasbro ones, or it was like, the apples to apples and Cards Against Humanity. Like I remember one of the first times I played Cards Against Humanity, my boyfriend at the time made me cry, and it was not good. It was not good for anyone. I think that it's just kind of that kind of competitiveness, sort of almost like a toxic competitiveness that it triggered in me, and then also kind of the like awkwardness and hurt feelings that can kind of come with it.
I think what makes it worse is when you play with other competitive people. Like my whole family, each person is very, very competitive, so we do get into fights all the
Arguments.
time. It becomes serious.
Well, I found that too. I find, for one, when I'd play being blind back in the days, back many moons ago, we had to have the support. You had to have somebody that kind of carried you along. So you felt you were playing, but not totally 100%. I never felt that it was totally me making it up, making the decisions. Even if you had the partner or didn't, you still needed some kind of assistance. It could be for you playing it. I could be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I still need a pair of eyes to help me out. So I think that was a turnoff for me. And I also felt just like you, Rebecca, if I won, I was dancing around. I won because I didn't win as much. If I lost, well, this is a stupid game. Who created this stupid Parker Brothers?
Yeah.
That's the way I was. So I totally get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another thing I like about the co-op is that, everybody's working together. And I feel like that is also a factor when, somebody in the group might need that extra assistance. It doesn't feel so much like they're being singled out because we're all working together anyway. So if you need to,
and then they don't feel like a burden either. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So it kind of, it's like, okay, we're all working as a team anyway. So I feel like that might be like a little bit less of that isolating feeling that can come with, needing a bit of help with the access.
Yeah. Is there a specific group you game with regularly?
Not per se. I game with usually my close friends. I don't have a group of people that are like my gaming group, but I have a few folks in my life who we try to get together for a game night once in a while. But sometimes I find a lot of the time, being adults, we don't see each other as much. So sometimes we have plans to play a board game and then we just end up catching up the whole time. Yeah. And then it's like, do we have time to play Betrayal now? We should probably be getting to bed soon. So there's that. But I do think that it can be a really good sort of bridging of the social interaction and gives you something to socialize around when you have the right game and the right group of people.
And if there's
the
a
right
new
group
person,
of people, sorry.
and if you have a new person too, it takes a little of the stress off them feeling left out of, well, I can't necessarily relate to everything, but if somebody brings somebody that's new and you're playing a game, then they kind of get into it. They get used to the people around, especially if they're comfortable with the game, and a little less pressure. I think that's a good thing for people doing the game. But like you said, you got a bunch of friends, you're going to sit back and talk, but again, that in itself is important to do.
Yeah, and I think just finding the right group is very important because I've had friends that I used to play with, but as my vision got deteriorated, it was just more of there was so much pressure and I slowly felt left out of the game where it all counted on speed. Okay, looking at the cards and seeing what's in the middle. It depends on the game, of course, but it was more of like, okay, I stopped liking the game because nobody thought, okay, this person has low vision. We need to accommodate for her or we need to make it, less
Unfortunately,
pressure.
I think that's me with the whole experience cards, board game, everything from feeling that way. It turned me off of it. And I kind of know a lot of blind people now do things online. Do you do a lot of the online gaming at all, Rebecca, or have you tried much of it? Especially through the pandemic, it became big, and people talk to me about it, and I think, yeah, I'd probably like that. Just like when we talk video games, I'd probably enjoy that too. But do I take the time to kind of do it? I worry I'd be just too addicted to it. I'd enjoy whatever accessible game I could do. And where's Kelly? Yeah, isn't he supposed to be hosting? Where is he?
Yeah, I haven't done that kind of online gaming as much. I have through the pandemic. I did play. It's a group of games. It's called Jackbox games, I think. And they have a few different ones that are like trivia. They're mostly kind of silly ones.
That's fun.
And they're not bad. They were more of like it's more, again, that's more of like a social thing. Those games kind of depended on the group, but it wasn't super my cup of tea. But for I think for what it was at the time, it was pretty good. I think it's just, for me, when it comes to online gaming, I'm more of like a straight up video game person or the tabletop role playing games. I don't really do, the sort of quote unquote board games online. No particular reason. I just haven't really gotten into it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
for
This
sure.
was a great conversation. Always fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Talk soon.
Yeah.
Get your next gaming recommendations with Rebecca Dingwell this time next month.
Okay, and I'd like to welcome Ramya Muthan in with us, folks, as we shift to the conversation we wanted to have on the end of the program. Mary's not with us today. Ram, welcome.
Hello, how's it going?
All right. We were discussing, as at the top of the show, the political week that has been, and so many different things that have gone on. And I know all of us have heard this, that, and that. We would like to hear on the show take a bit of a different angle. But first, I do want to mention any interaction you want to do with us. Please feel free, especially after any of the conversations. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly and Co AMI. That's at Kelly and Co AMI on Instagram and Twitter. So Canada's new Prime Minister, ladies, Mark Carney, is coming in really hot. He's ready to take on the U.S. in a full-blown trade fight. He's stripped down cabinet roles to keep things lean and focused. I mean, Trudeau had 36 cabinet members. Carney has dropped that by about 10 or 11 at this point. But in the middle of all that, the minister who used to speak up for people with disabilities, gone. Kamala, who held that role, not only lost her portfolio, but her seat in the election. And now those responsibilities have been folded into a supersized ministry handled by Stephen McKinnon, who's also juggling jobs, families, seniors, and so much more. With Carney expected to name a new cabinet in hopefully the next 2 weeks, we're asking the question, will disability advocacy find its way back to the table? Or without a clear voice in cabinet, is it now up to all of us to speak louder? So I ask you, first to begin, Carney's clearly focused on defending Canada in a tough economic moment, but disability advocacy seems to be getting buried under a 6-point mega ministry portfolio. Is that focus at risk of becoming tunnel vision? And how confident are you that McKinnon can speak for Canadians already living with so much less, and at catching the trade wars collateral damage? This is what we're dealing with right now. I'm going to start with you, Rum, if you would, on your thoughts on this. Is this even remotely manageable? I'll start with you, Rum.
Yeah, it's a very big picture question that you're asking, Kel, right? Like, and we got to zoom out a lot because yes, it's already happened. It's been happening. The whole reason why we've even had to move up the federal election and re-elect a prime minister, why, going backwards even more, Justin Trudeau stepping down, and everything is in an uproar. Why is that? Because of Donald Trump. So I think internationally, not just within Canada, but internationally, when you zoom out further, everyone is laser focused on this right now. And then when we zoom in for, let's say, provincials, because Ontario just re-elected Premier Doug Ford, and it's the same question. How are we dealing with Trump? How are we dealing with the South? And trade wars are pretty much the only thing that anyone's ever focused on, unless your reality forces you to focus on other things like people with disabilities, like other issues we can talk about through the conversation. Niz?
Well, and I mean, if you look at things like the pandemic, Nazreen, these things took priority and are going to, and even at the best of times, disability issues seem to be shoved down the list behind seniors, behind housing, and we sit back and get really frustrated. But so, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what do you feel on this level? Is it going to continue like this for 4 years where disability stuff is stomped on?
I think it's going to be buried, as you mentioned, that not only did they shuffle the cabinet, not only did they cut the cabinet in half, but to have Steve McKinnon with all these responsibilities, not enough time. I mean, I'm not really confident at this point. I'm not really confident that they're going to be really laser focused on disability rights. I'm not.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you're telling me that this person has so many responsibilities, a whole list, and and I get it. There's a reason behind him cutting the cabinet in half, but at the same time, like, how effective is it? How effective is it going to be?
Well, and it goes to the people who
Yeah.
say the reason he's in there is due to his past, not necessarily due to the fact that he's a political figure. He is not. And this is what's going to happen as a result when it comes to the cabinet. I mean, at the best of times, Carla Qualtrough, who could best speak to disability issues before, her portfolio also had sport and so on, and then it got changed around. It depends on, you still are putting on people something extra, and I understand that's going to happen with a lot of people's portfolios, but again, it moves in importance. It shows you where it's seen on the level of importance.
I also have to add that I agree with Remia about how it's laser focused right now on the trade war happening with the US, the tariffs. It's literally laser focused on that, because every time I type anything about the election online, that's all it comes down to. Yeah.
I worry that you could do that before this came. If you were looking for and disability issues, seniors issues would still be way down, more further down than we would like to see them. Rums?
And one of the biggest reasons why, because we're talking about finances, we're talking about how Mark Carney is going to handle our finances. And, let's say the number of people who voted him in, believe that we can trust him with our money. We can trust the current liberal federal representatives with our finances, because that seems to be kind of the broader sense of what we're talking about here, right? Making sure that Canada can move forward in a direction that will make sure that we have the power of our finances that we should have, and that he's going to help us manage that. The Liberals are going to help us manage that. However, where does the Canada Disability Benefit sit in this? Where do the Ontario Disability Support Program financial benefits sit in this? Where do other parallel programs that exist for people with disabilities sit in this? We've talked a lot about tax brackets and cutting taxes, or, the argument against taxes, for or against it. We talk so much about the carbon tax. We talk so much about the tax bracket, and even on the housing crisis, which is obviously a huge part of the conversation. Everything seems to be around removing taxes for first-time home buyers or making it more affordable, but no one necessarily ever brings up the disability side of that either, right? The disability angle. I think that we're basically just like, it's a huge oversight. It's a huge oversight. And unless it's a specific conversation about disability, like the Canada Disability Benefit and or people's advocacy toward that, really, then we're not bringing it up in these federal elections. We're not bringing it enough in policy. We're not bringing it enough in the debates, right? Like, how many debates have we had where we're actually bringing up disability as a topic? It's not just for the sake of time. You just really think, like, are people even considering it? It's always a back burner project, right? That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Well, or a
yeah.
bargaining chip, right? To me, it's always brought up by the party that probably is never likely to get in, and it always feels like it's bantered around the issues for seniors, Indigenous people, people with disabilities, and the other parties, the bigger parties, are speaking more to the quote working community, unquote, the likely people who are going to vote, the younger people, the students out there that are, hey, I can vote for the first time. But when it comes to the needs of other people, who are the ones who actually probably reach out and get on their political reps. Like, for example, have either of you ever spoke to a political rep? Have you ever done that, Niz?
Yeah. Last year, I wrote to my MP and our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. So I wrote to them. It was because I'm fighting for a ceasefire. I'm an advocate for Palestine, of course. And I wanted our leaders, the people that represent us, to actually do some action. I want them to fight for a ceasefire. And obviously I did not get a response. And there were hundreds, maybe thousands of people that were writing to our MPs and the prime minister, not getting responses. And if they did get a response, it would be a very generic email back. So what does that mean? It's so discouraging. It's so discouraging that, okay, our voices are not being heard. Do they not care? Do they not care? So
they're going to give their quote politically correct answer, staying neutral enough but supportive.
And you guys think about even the protests, whatever the protest is about, protests, writing to our MPs, all these actions that we're taking to be activists, to fight for our rights, they're not being heard. Our actions are not being noticed. So it is, a lot of people do feel discouraged that, okay, what are we really fighting for at this point, and who is even listening?
And the reaction
kind of
often is
mindset.
Don't vote.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You bring up a really good point.
Yeah. I still, of course, feel like voting is important because regardless, it's, majority rules and whatever you vote for, it is still important to vote at the end of the day. But it is discouraging for a lot of people that, okay, does my vote even count at this point? Do they even care about my rights? Where is my voice taking me? And honestly, it sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah. Do you think people think they don't know anything about it, that we're not interested until something like this, what's going on now with the terrorists, affects us? I mean, quite frankly, I recall many times in life where politics to me seemed like it had nothing to really do with me. It didn't affect me in the same way. And again, I've always been a person that if something bothered me in my city, I felt comfortable to call City Hall, whether they heard me or not, or if I said, hey, you've got roads here that the blind person, I'm blind, I can't get through because you're not plowing them in the wintertime. That's probably the extent of what I've done. Rum?
Yeah, and both of you bring up such interesting points because the ripple effect of feeling like, well, my voice doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter, my identity is not represented here. Like you've just, we're just tip of the iceberg what you guys are mentioning. Because yes, your question, Kelly, was have we ever written to our member of parliament or local representative, right? And it's, for me, the answer is no. I've never done it. I've never felt the urge to do it. I've signed petitions and things like that. So I've added my voice to a collective, right? And Nisreen, you're kind of pointing that out as well, a collective cause. But I've never once felt that I, as an individual, need to spearhead some kind of a leadership in politics, because I'm like, what does it matter? It's going to get stopped at some point anyway. And these are not even things that I've outright said to myself, but they're obviously things that I feel and things that many people feel. Now, I don't think we should take this federal election as an example because we had huge voter turnout, even at advanced polls, right? So this particular one shows that people care about something was speaking to us at this point in time, the desperation maybe of facing the South. But when it comes to disability, like if disability is a huge part of your identity, but you never hear it in politics, you never hear people talk about it. Now with the cabinet shuffle, there's not even someone specifically representing you and your issues. What are you going to do? Like, where do we start thinking about politics being part of our role? And that whole notion of like every vote and every voice counts. Where do we start convincing ourselves of that? Like, we need to be everywhere. That's what I think my position is.
Yeah.
People with disabilities need to be everywhere on every level so that we can, and we can, turn to our left, turn to our right, and see and hear people who are speaking for us, speaking on behalf of us, hearing what we're saying, we're hearing what they're seeing, and that be the ripple effect, not we look up at Mark Carney and everybody else up there representing us in Ottawa and thinking, where am I here? It can't be like that. That's not the way that the system is built in Canada anyway. Politics has to be local and spread out. And if we're not feeling like we're being represented locally, then there's so much separation between us and Ottawa, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Carney has to do what he has to do because this is for the general of the public of Canada. Everyone is affected.
Just one of the kinds of changes.
Yeah, I can't speak to what he's going to do in the way of the cabinet representation, but what I do know is, going back to what you said, we all have to be together. We have to speak up as a community, disabled people, and I think the best things we can do is recognize disability is something people are talking more about. We may not be able to get specifically to our politicians who don't answer Nisreen's letter and saying, hey, what can you do? What are you going to do? What support? And these are important letters, but maybe we do need to speak to the media, get online, so that these people see. This is something upsetting a community of people. These people are making noise. None of us want that noise because, quiet, don't say that so loud. Yeah, but you're not. Quiet. Yeah, and I think that's the way to get the Carneys and them to realize, oh man, these are some upset people. This is embarrassing.
And it depends on the cause, right?
Like this is allowing it. Well, yeah, I think the disability sphere has to really stick together. We can't just go for bus stop calling for the blind. We can't just go for ramps for people in wheelchairs. We have to go for all of it. Yeah. Be greedy and go after all of it. Guys, thank you very much. Rum, appreciate you coming on board here to join us for this conversation today, okay?
Thank you.
Nisreen and I will be back on the show tomorrow, folks, when we rejoin you on our next show. Nick Alberga, host and director of the Leafs Morning Take at the Nation Network, has NHL standings for us to talk about, playoff matchups, and Nick's impressions, predictions, and coolest moments so far. We'll have some random host questions for him, too. And it's spring, and you know what that means? Yes, flowers, leaves on trees, and all that stuff. But for Greg David, it also means pilot season. We'll talk to him when he joins us Friday to talk about the new TV shows. Fedora's off to you, folks. Talk to you then.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.